Again, I'm Hardie Davis. I'm a native Augustan. I've been in the city for over 28 years. Went to high school here at Hepzibah High School and left in '87 to attend Georgia Tech, where I studied electrical engineering. After graduating with a degree in electrical engineering, I came back to this great city and worked at Savannah Riverside as a systems engineer, and then after that, Monsanto as lead project engineer, and then ultimately lead automation engineer. Very passionate about our city. My wife and I, we have raised our son here. We have a 12-year-old son who cares about Augusta just as much as we do. My family's here, and we've made investments in this community, the most important being our 12-year-old son. We want to see an Augusta that has opportunities for him and the other 31,000 students that make up our great community. Again, I come from a long background in public servants. Again, my parents are here. I've got folks who are educators in my family, lawyers, attorneys, and several engineers, preachers, but we are people who are passionate about helping others, and that's very the heart of who I am. I've had the great privilege of serving our community in the legislature for the last 7 years. First in the House of Representatives, where I spent 3 years there, worked on a number of committees. Those experiences helped me, I believe, significantly as a member of the Senate, because I had already developed a reputation as someone who was willing to work with anyone, someone who was willing to get involved in the issues that matter to the state of Georgia and ultimately to Augusta. I've served in the Senate for the last 5 sessions. Been fortunate enough to have been given an opportunity to serve as a chairman of the Interstate Cooperation Committee. One of the more notable things that we've done in that committee is passed legislation this year that creates the Interstate Compact for Juvenile Justice. Georgia, post the Sonny Perdue administration, had never been engaged in the Juvenile Justice Compact. We were the only lone holdout of all 50 states. Governor Deal, in his forward thinking, has now moved very quickly to address criminal justice and juvenile justice issues. Our committee, and certainly work that I've been involved in, has been certainly at the forefront of that, to include the juvenile justice piece. So I've had an opportunity to be involved in a number of things that affect our great state. Transportation. My first year at the Senate, I served on the Transportation Committee, where we crafted the legislation that ultimately became the Transportation Investment Act of 2010. Most people call it a T-SPLOST. We were one of 3 regions that passed that. Not only did I have the great fortune of working on that, but I moved from that committee to finance. We worked on the ad valorem tax legislation that's changed it from being a birthday tax now to when you purchase a vehicle. And a lot of people across the state of Georgia, and I know the automobile dealers have been real pleased with the changes we've made, where now you pay one time. So I've been engaged in a number of very key pieces of legislation. It's those experiences that I believe are going to be helpful to Augusta moving forward. The relationships that we've established across the entire state of Georgia will prove very helpful in the days ahead. All politics are local. I believe that. I think most people understand that. But relationships matter. When we look at what's happened at Georgia Regents University, being a part of that conversation in its earliest stages about what could happen with the consolidation. Historically, we've taken 2 entities that were viewed across the state as community colleges, and we've now created a full-fledged research institution, our 4th research institution, and quite frankly, one of our most significant ones, because it is in fact the state's flagship healthcare and teaching hospital. Those are important things, and things that I've had an opportunity to be a part of as a member of the Georgia Senate and a member of the legislature. With a reputation as someone who gets things done, having never been in the majority party, I always worked from the minority, but being willing to work across aisles and get things done that matter to this community and do things in a transformative way that have helped people. Those are the successes that I think we can bring back to Augusta and continue to make a difference at one of our most critical times as a city. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay. You mentioned the consolidation. That has upset a great number of people about how that's handled. If you put yourself in that position as, say, the president of this newly consolidated university, what would you do, or what would you do differently to to sell the community on that consolidation?
Well, I think, Tom, to your point, there are a lot of people who were upset primarily about the naming of the institution. But I think when people look at the enterprise that's been created and what its long-term impact will be to this community and ultimately to the state of Georgia, people are going to be pleased. And they are pleased with that. Had I been in that unique position as president, I would have again done more to engage the citizens of this community up front, particularly in terms of what do we want the university to look like in Augusta, but what do we see Georgia Regents University being to the world. We're not interested in local championships. We're interested in being the best. And I think that's the emphasis that I would have taken into this conversation, and I still take into this conversation. I want Georgia Regents University to be the top tier 1 medical school in the world, not just in the state of Georgia, but in the world. As a graduate of Georgia Tech, I can talk about what we've done there. We are a brand across the world. That's the same type of emphasis and opportunity that I'd like to see Georgia Regents have. And certainly if given the opportunity to serve as the next mayor, I will look for strategic opportunities to partner with that institution and to continue to advance the cause of Georgia Regents across the state and then across the country and certainly across the international content. But that's what I would have done, to engage the citizens across this community up front. Yes, there was a citizens advisory panel, but more could have been done and should have been done across the entire demographic of our community. It's just like when we have public town hall meetings, not everybody comes. It's like all of the forums that we've been to, not everybody comes and has an opportunity to have their voice heard. More could have been done from a grassroots perspective by engaging the students, which is your audience, that's your primary audience. And to build capacity with the students at the school, that's what could have been done and should have been done. At the end of the day, we know that the president of the school is the decision maker along with his cabinet. And then, of course, the Board of Regents, they're the decision makers. But when there's so much rich history in the community between Augusta State University and the old medical college, my wife's a graduate of the Medical College of Georgia. We still call it MCG. And so those things could have been done, and quite frankly, it could have averted much of the dissension, especially around the naming of the institution. You don't essentially throw a red herring and say, tell me what you want the name to be, and you snatch that back. That's not how we operate as public servants, and that could have been done differently. It should have been done differently, and certainly, again, while I'm not the president, but had I had that opportunity, I think I'm a little more sensitive to the issues of people.
There are still some folks in Augusta who are convinced in their own minds that Athens, the University of Georgia, the Board of Regents is going to steal the medical college eventually and relocate it there. What do you think about that? And if there was such an effort, what could you do to stop it?
I think we reverted that. When you look at the fact that we've now created the state's 4th major research institution, that has been a concern when I became a member of the legislative delegation in 2007. I know our former senator, now U.S. Attorney Ed Tarver, led the charge to make sure that we stood strong against that idea of siphoning off resources here in Augusta and taking them to Athens. While there is a place there at the old Navy Supply School where they're teaching doctors, we have now made every effort to fully establish and entrench Georgia Regents University as the state's medical teaching hospital. I am confident that the consolidation takes us from what historically were viewed as 2 community colleges. These are conversations I've heard all across the legislature for the years that I've been there. And we've now created an institution that folks look for opportunity to invest in. When you look at the $60 million investment in the dental school, the additional investment with the medical commons, we have now firmly entrenched Georgia Regents University as the place for teaching doctors, nurses, dentists, and other allied health professionals in the state of Georgia. And then with the opportunity where the cancer center is concerned, I'm extremely confident But again, as the next mayor of Augusta, Georgia, I'm looking for opportunities for us to further establish this as the home to teach medical professionals, science professionals, etc. Athens will continue to be Athens. Not only have we fought that fight, but as an engineer, we fought that same fight where engineering classes are concerned, and they were able to secure additional engineering schools at UGA. But I can assure you, they will never be Georgia Tech. They will never be Georgia Regents University. As a member of the legislature, and certainly if given the opportunity to serve as Augusta's next mayor, I'm confident that we will continue to be the state's flagship medical school here in Augusta.
How will you use your office to raise the bar for our educational system, the high schools, the elementary schools, so that our students here locally are more able to take advantage of the opportunities at Charity?
Well, one of the things that I look forward to doing first is strengthening the partnerships between the mayor's office, the commission, and the school board. The most important piece, and we can talk about economic growth, job creation all day long, but the success of that requires us to, number one, deal with the dropout rate here in our schools. I think that as a mayor, you have to be engaged in that conversation. You have to be engaged from the start of here are the workforce professionals we need to be developing and creating. Again, as an engineer, as someone who's had advanced degrees, advanced education, it is vitally important for us to, one, deal with the dropout rate in our school system, and then deal with the graduation rate by providing our students with opportunities. I visited most of the schools here in our county, and when I ask kids what do they want to be when they grow up, they've got very lofty ideas, but they've never had exposure to those careers. They've never had exposures to those opportunities. And that's one of the things that has to happen. So partnering with our school system, making certain that we create every opportunity and pathway to begin lowering our dropout rate, raising our graduation rate, but then bringing the business community to the table. If we talk about growing industry here in Augusta, it starts with our existing industry, and then we can look at our recruitment efforts so that we can begin diversifying our industrial recruitment base here in Augusta. But that requires us looking at opportunities where STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, everybody's talking and excited about cybersecurity. I come from that arena, I come from that background as an engineer. And so I understand what needs to happen in terms of developing a workforce that allows us to provide opportunity for Augustans. Unfortunately, many of the folks who come to this community, they will move here, they will work here, but they'll live across the river, as I call it, in Columbia County. That greatly disturbs me. We've got to create opportunities for success, and make no mistake about it, as the next mayor of this city, it is important for me also and those commissioners to champion what's good about our schools. We can spend time in the weeds talking about, well, our schools are at this place, but let's talk about what's good about it. We have 3 of the best schools in the country here in Augusta, Georgia. So we've got to start championing what's good about our schools instead of just talking about the negatives. Once we change the narrative and change that conversation, that we do have some very good schools. And it's not just it's not just Davison, Johnson, and C.T. Walker, but Cross Creek sends more students to Georgia Tech than any other school in the county. Okay, Cross Creek High School. So we're doing some very significant things that go unnoticed. At the International Baccalaureate Program at Richmond Academy, we're graduating great students who are going off doing amazing things. So it's not just those 3. So we've got to champion what's good about our schools, and I think that is the role of the mayor. You can't talk about recruiting industry, and over the last several years we've had some successes. Much of those are in the service industries. But when we talk about providing individuals with opportunities in this community, there have to be high-wage opportunities. When you look at what's happening with Cyber Command, the first wave of individuals are actually transplants. They're transferred. They're going to come to this community from Maryland, Virginia, and the surrounding areas. But we have to develop a workforce that will allow us to grow those professionals here so that there are long-term opportunities as folks move and transition. As a member of the Senate, as a member of the board at Georgia Tech's Research Institute, almost a $500 million entity, where we're already doing cybersecurity work for the Department of Defense. We're already doing work with the National Institutes of Health. We're already doing that type of work in that space. Our president has met with General Patterson, had conversations. We met with General Alexander. We've had those conversations. I've been a part of those conversations of what we need here in Augusta to begin developing that workforce. I had a meeting with the Chancellor and the Chair of our Board of Regents, Phil Wilhite, and said, here's what I'd like to do if given the opportunity to serve as Augusta's next mayor. I want to create a partnership between Georgia Tech and Georgia Regents University. We have a very strong computer science, cybersecurity program at Georgia Tech. We need to grow that here in Augusta. They've got a computer science program there, but we need to strengthen that so that we're growing those opportunities here and then channeling our students from K through 12 that you don't have to be the basketball player, you don't have to be the football player, you can be the engineer, you can be the health science professional. In fact, you can be the guy or the gal sitting behind the computer listening to what's going on downrange, because we've got the opportunities here in the community for you to be trained, for you to develop those skills and be able to work. That's what I look forward to.
And will you incorporate technical schools as well in that conversation?
Absolutely. Again, one of the things that we've done as a member of the Senate, and I look forward to working with our next legislative delegation, and that is looking for opportunities to make additional investments in Augusta Technical College. They've got an amazing program there of where they've created a pathway for students to take classes now in high school and be taking classes at Augusta Technical College right now. That, I believe, is going to be the long-term catalyst for future success for individuals in our community. Everyone does not need a 4-year degree. We are hiring individuals with 2-year degrees faster in this state and in this country than we are with individuals who graduated with 4-year degrees. I think that's extremely important moving forward. And so there is a relationship that exists already. We simply need to expand on that through our career academies and technical colleges. We've done a lot from a legislative perspective to create those opportunities. Now we need to take advantage of that here in Augusta.
The city government has been described as dysfunctional. Would you agree with that assessment or that description? And if so, what could you do, given the limitations of the office as mayor, to make it less dysfunctional?
I think that when you look at how our local governments operated, there have certainly been moments of dysfunction. There have been angst and divisiveness. I come from, again, a legislature where we don't fight, we don't publicly embarrass employees, we don't do things like that on the floor of the legislature. Much of the heavy lifting that goes on from a government standpoint should happen in the committee process. I am not convinced that the committees are being utilized as they should be. When we bring things to the floor of government, whether it be in the halls of the legislature or even in local government, the committee process is where you take things from the cradle to maturity. That, in my mind, is not happening. As the next mayor, knowing and understanding not only Robert's Rules of Order, but more importantly, the rules of the court in terms of how we engage, how we handle the deliberation process, the debate process. I think that's what I bring to the table from a diplomacy perspective, because that's what's needed. But then at the same time, engaging our commissioners to get them to a place of where they embrace the committee process is where the heavy lifting should take place. We should not come to the floor and try to cobble a budget together on the floor of the municipal building, but rather in the committee process. We've had opportunity to engage the finance director, we've had opportunity to engage all of the department heads, and so when the budget process begins in September, because they're different than the legislature, our budget year, our calendar year runs a little differently, but when we do that work in advance, we then look for opportunities to where in each of the districts, what are we getting done in your district through the general budget process? We spend so much of our time talking about SPLOS, talking about capital outlay and all of those things, but the general budget process is how we administer government, providing for the health, welfare, and safety of all of our citizens. That's where I believe my understanding of state and local government becomes extremely important. People talk about, well, the mayor, doesn't have any power. I think that is a divisive statement in and of itself, and that people, they hover around the pendulum of this notion of power, when in reality, what we look for is shared responsibility. At the end of the day, the buck should stop with the mayor. The mayor is the CEO of the city of this, he is the CEO of this great city. The mayor, while working with the commissioners, needs to have a clear and aggressive legislative policy, a plan of action of how we're going to grow this city. It then becomes the commissioner's opportunity to be engaged in that process and look for ways to be partners in growing the overall city while making sure that those most critical needs that government is designed for, promoting the health, welfare, and public safety of all of our citizens. That's what government's designed for. And I think if given the opportunity to serve as the mayor, that's what I would look forward to, an opportunity of bringing those 10 commissioners and working with them in the general budget process. And as we move forward, establishing that the rules of engagement are we handle these things in committee, and before we put an agenda together and bring it to the floor, these issues are mature. We're confident that they are in the best interest of the people of this great city, and then we move forward with them. We shouldn't have meetings just to have meetings, just to say that we've done, quote, the business of the people. But yet, when we get to the floor, we're mired in controversy and divisiveness because you didn't know what was taking place over here from the 7th district. And then the 6th district, where you weren't at the meeting and you didn't know what was going on. We need to stop that, because that's where it happens in the committee process. People are given the opportunity to lead at that level and now bring those issues forward because they're mature. And then as the mayor, it's no different than the lieutenant governor. The lieutenant governor doesn't go to the committee meetings. The lieutenant governor presides over the proceedings. The Speaker of the House presides over the floor and makes certain that when we bring issues to the floor, they are mature. Is there a debate that goes on? Absolutely. But the public embarrassment to the city, to the citizens, or even to employees, that will not happen, because we'll look for opportunities to bring things to maturity.
You hear about some, I guess, local politicians who become commissioners or mayors and then aspire to be in their state house or state senate and then the U.S. Senate. So what makes you want to go from being a lawmaker at that level back to the county?
So my reason for running is a very simple reason. When I come to this community, I've listened to the senior citizens. I've listened to the young families. I've listened to the students in our schools who've said, Senator Davis, we have no hope for what's going on in our community. We're tired of the dysfunction. We see the fighting. We see the divisiveness along the lines of race. And we spend so much of our time majoring in the minors. And as I've looked at those things, and I've looked at when I left Augusta and went to the legislature, I was very clear. I said I did not want to, quote, be a career politician and serve 20 or 30 or 40 years in Atlanta. I had no interest in that. When I look at my 12-year-old son and the other 31,000 students that we have in our school system, I want them to have the same opportunities that I've had to live here, to work here, to go to school here as a public school student, to graduate and come back to this community. I want to be in a position of providing opportunities for existing Augustans, but future generations of Augustans. And I believe that I'm uniquely qualified with the values, the skills, and the experiences to do that in a very transformative way. I've not been part of, quote, the dysfunction that's happened over the last 8 years in our community, but I've looked for opportunities to help grow Augusta as a lawmaker, putting in place the tools necessary for economic growth and job creation. I understand what we've done legislatively and how those things become extremely helpful here in this community. It is not a step down or a step backwards, but quite frankly, for me to come and offer myself as a public servant to be the next mayor of this city, it is nothing more than an opportunity for me to continue to serve as a public servant in this community that I care so greatly about, a community that my wife and I, my family and others have made significant investments in, that I am concerned that without the right leader in place, those investments can begin to dry up. I am extremely concerned about that. That's why I'm running, so that the future Augustans will have opportunity to not only go to our schools, but graduate, go off to college, and come back to this community. God forbid that my 12-year-old son leaves Augusta, goes to Georgia Tech, graduates, and on the day of graduation says, Dad, I'm not working in Augusta, couldn't get a job, I've got to go to California or Texas. He's my only child. I refuse to let that happen. That's why I'm running for mayor.
Statistics show that more young people in Augusta die from homicide than motor vehicle accidents. As a father of a 12-year-old son and a legislator who's had an active role in juvenile justice, what are your thoughts on that, and how can we change that trend?
Well, I think, again, we've got to work very aggressively to lower our dropout rate. Students have to understand and know that they have opportunities, to be whatever they want to be within the context of what's available in their community. Again, talk about this idea of, being an athlete. I played basketball as well, I played football, but I knew for a fact that I was not going to be the next Michael Jordan. So I didn't spend my time focused on that. I wanted to be the best engineer I could be. In fact, I wanted to be one of the top 10 engineers in the country. Had no idea how to measure that, had no idea how I was going to accomplish that, but I knew that I was going to go to Georgia Tech and I was going to be an engineer, and that it would provide and open doors of opportunity. And so we've got to take those same things where many of us have experienced and go into our schools and begin to promote opportunity for our students. Opportunity that you don't have to be gangbangers. You don't have to be the guy or the girl who drops out of school. And we've not done enough of that. There are so many nonprofit organizations in Augusta, Georgia that are doing very good work. But if given the opportunity to serve this community as its next mayor, I believe that there's an organization, the Augusta Partnership for Children and Families, that is doing amazing things, that has an opportunity. In fact, I believe that they do the best job of corralling all of the resources in this community, helping those very children that you're talking about, the juveniles that you're talking about. From a legislative standpoint, we've done some things to make sure that we keep them out of the prisons, that we keep them out of the jails, that we have intervention opportunities, that we keep them from that place of where they're in the system and they become repeat offenders. But now we've got to go at the very core of it, the grassroots of it, and that is taking those nonprofit organizations and making them mobile, making them not only mobile, but providing them with pathways to be successful, as opposed to just another organization that says, well, we're mentoring. Well, there's a lot of mentoring that goes on, but we've got to go beyond mentoring individuals to then putting them in strategic places of where, have you ever thought about interning over here at this company? Have you ever known or been given the opportunity to serve in this type of role? That's the next step that has to happen, that's currently not happening in our community. We've got an organization called Youth Leadership, which is a part of Augusta's Leadership Augusta program. Well, those are the cream of the crop. Those are the best and the brightest. I've heard many people say, well, let's just focus on the best and the brightest, and while the others, they go to hell in a handbasket. That cannot be the Augusta that we see. Our community has the 6th highest dropout rate in the nation. We've got to start there and fix that. That's why we have high homicides, because they see no future. They see no opportunities for them. And so this is where the technical schools become extremely important.
Did you say our district has the 6th?
In 2009, our county was viewed as the 6th highest dropout rate in the country, in the nation. 6th highest dropout rate of African Americans.
Of African Americans?
That's correct. And so
It's still below the state level, though. I don't know if that's...
I think that was in the national level.
Okay.
2009 data. When you look at the technical schools, we have to go back to the place when I was a student in high school, and maybe many of you, where it was attractive to be an electrician. It was attractive to be a plumber. It was attractive to be a mechanic. Those are high-wage earning jobs. Those are the jobs of today and the jobs of our future. We've got to encourage those same students that you don't have to do those things, but here are things that you can do as an issue, but also using the legislative things that we've done to make sure that if they have offended, that they're not violent offenders, and here's your second chance. Here's your third opportunity to get a life and get your life together and be able to move forward.
So you've talked about the future a lot. If we look back on your tenure as mayor, what 3 things will we say were the mark of your term?
In our first term, in fact, in our first 100 days, what I call our Move Augusta strategy, we'll bring key stakeholders to the table, from key freight stakeholders to the table, freight, transport, and rail. I would like Augusta to become the state's second inland logistics port. Cordele is the first inland port as a result of the planned Savannah Harbor expansion project. As we talk about the widening of the Panama Canal and the Panamax ships coming into the U.S., Augusta is uniquely situated to become an inland logistics port. We have Starbucks out at the industrial park that's on Highway 56. We have another industrial park that's located there on Tobacco Road. We have the infrastructure currently in place that we could, in fact, as the cargo comes off the ships and they're moving by way of rail, they're moving by way of semi-trucks, Augusta could uniquely become situated as the next inland logistics port through working with the Department of Economic Development, through our Richmond County Development Authority, and other partners to bring those individuals together in our first 100 days as mayor of Augusta, that we can begin aggressively moving forward with putting in place the plans to approach the state of Georgia, that we might then look for opportunity to create the second inland port here in Augusta, Georgia. That's in the first 100 days. The second thing that we look forward to doing is looking for opportunity to promote accountability and transparency where government is concerned. There's been so much conversation about that, and as the next mayor of Augusta, I look forward to having regular mayor's office hours in the district. We've got to bring government to the people. Too often we look for opportunity to have people come to government. In each of our districts, there's so much that's going on in the community. There's so many different needs, but with an opportunity to take government to the people in the commission districts, the 8 commission districts, we have an opportunity to engage the citizens at that level and to hear what's going on, to then not only hear but to see specifically what are the immediate needs in our community that we can then come back and through legislative action. The reality of it is our commissioners are in fact legislators. They are elected to be legislators, to create policy, ordinance, regulations that again promote business advancement and opportunity, health, welfare, and safety of all of our citizens. It's no different than what we do as lawmakers under the Gold Dome, but you do it at the local level. That's what we'll do, accountability and transparency, and then create an opportunity for individuals to know what's going on from a budget process by creating an online dashboard for all of our citizens to see what is going on, where your tax dollars being spent in Augusta, Richmond County. And then look for an opportunity to reform how we do business in government. There's so many conversations around licensing and permitting. I hear this all the time from contractors. We want to do business in Augusta, but we can't get permits fast enough. We can't do these things. I think when you look at what's going on under the leadership of our newest director, Melanie Wilson, in planning and development, she's doing some very forward-thinking things. I look for an opportunity as the next mayor to fully partner with her in terms of how we move Augusta, the Move Augusta strategy in the first 100 days to make sure that we are moving the market quicker in terms of our development processes here through the licensing and permitting process. That's extremely important. That's been one of our linchpins to success here in Augusta, Georgia. When I've got neighboring counties who quickly get permits and licenses to the developers or contractors, we've got to make sure that we're equally competitive here in Augusta, and we've not done a very good job of that. In the first 100 days, that's what I want people to look back and say, here's what's being done now. Here's what the mayor has worked towards. And then, along with that, again, this is a very aggressive 100-day plan. Make certain that we truly are working on infrastructure all across this county. In South Augusta, we've got to get people off septic tanks. We've got to get sewage out there. We've got all of the water available to us, but we've got to get opportunity for infrastructure. That's how we're going to grow retail and commercial investments on the south side of town. And those things are extremely critical to our long-term success as a community. I think that's enough to work on in that first 100 days. There are other things that we believe we can get done, but it's going to require the mayor working with the 10 commissioners. Make no mistake about it. I'm ready to make the tough decisions. I believe Augusta can be better, and I believe Augusta can be better now, but leadership is required to do that. Leadership that's not been a part of the problems of our past, and certainly a part of our present, but leadership that has a demonstrated track record of working with folks, and also bringing the business table to the business communities to the table so that we can begin expanding opportunities for existing industry before we focus all of our energy and time on industrial recruitment efforts for new industry.
Do you support the SPLOST that we're about to vote on?
I do. I support the SPLOST for this reason. Number one, it is an opportunity for us to continue to enhance and promote the quality of life for all of our citizens in this county. I support the SPLOST because it is an opportunity for us to have others come to this community and invest in this city as well, without it being a new tax on our citizens. I support the SPLOST because there are, in fact, some good projects in there that allow us to do the things that I've talked about in terms of public safety. There are projects in there that allow our sheriffs to be more adept at community policing, that allow our sheriffs to be better at providing safety and services to all of our citizens. There are projects in there, while they may be questionable, that they enhance our arts and culture here in Augusta, Georgia. When you talk about the number of individuals who are going to move into this community as a result of healthcare, as a result of us consolidating the colleges, as a result of cybersecurity and cyber command, when you talk about those individuals who are moving into this community, they're individuals who are looking for a continuum of culture, arts, and entertainment opportunities. And I think that some of those projects are in fact included in this existing SPLOST that's being proposed. Could we have done it differently? Absolutely. I've said this at each of the forums that I've been at, that I am only one vote. I will go to the polls on May the 20th, just like everyone else will. If there is such great dissension and unrest about this SPLOST, people have an opportunity to vote it down, and they have an opportunity then to come back to the table. I didn't put the list together, but what I do know is it is not a new tax. It is an opportunity, just like we've done in previous SPLOST, that those who are standing up, beating the drum, saying it was illegal, those that have stood and said that we should vote this one down, the same type of projects that are in this proposed SPLOST were projects that were in the 2009 SPLOST that individuals not only voted for as commissioners, but went to the polls and voted for. And it's duplicitous and disingenuous to now all of a sudden say it's illegal, when in fact there are similar projects that are in this SPLOST that were in the previous SPLOST, and that is nothing more than a continuation of the current tax that's already there, and that allows us to enhance the quality of life of all of our citizens. Had I been there as the mayor, would we have been more deliberative in our process? Absolutely. I think that's what I've historically done in terms of communicating things, giving individuals an opportunity. But as an elected official, it is my responsibility to make sure that I show up to the conversation as I'm representing the people. And that's what could have been done differently. That's what should have been done differently. And could there have been different projects put in it? Absolutely. But we have what's before us. If people are opposed to it, I not only say go to the polls and vote no, but look for an opportunity to engage your existing elected officials and share with them what projects you want to see on it. But as an individual, as a citizen in this community, I am supportive of the SPLOST. The package that's put together, there are infrastructure projects in there that are extremely critical to our long-term success as a community. Is there enough investment? Absolutely not. We don't have all of the money available, but it allows us to continue to chip away at those things that are critical to our long-term success as a community, and therefore I'm supportive of it.
One of those projects, the Augusta Regional Collaboration Project's Mills Campus proposal. I mean, what's your opinion on it, and what might you do as mayor with that?
Well, as mayor and certainly as senator, I think those two, they run together in terms of at least having heard about the project. There's a lot of interest at the Mills campus. But as the next mayor of Augusta, I want to see private investment to the table first. Government has a role in these projects. Government has a role in growing our city. But until we bring private investment to the table, we're going to put a burden, an undue burden, in my opinion, on local government. There has to be significant private investment at the Mills campus, which is why I believe Georgia Regents University and its president and the Board of Regents and the Chancellor have taken a very slow approach in terms of their involvement in that conversation, because they too believe that private investment is vital to the long-term growth and success of Georgia Regents, to this community, and certainly to the city and citizens here in Augusta, Georgia. The ARC, as I understand it, there's, quote, a proposed amount of money in this SPLOST for that. I'm not certain what all of those dollars would be used for. It's certainly an ongoing conversation that I look forward to having. But those individuals who have put the project list together, I would hope that they've done a proper vetting of that to make certain that, one, it is in the best interest of our citizens long term. But that happens all the time in terms of making an investment for the future of our city. What I know, if given the opportunity to serve as our next mayor, is that the release of those resources will be contingent upon some benchmarks, that as we continue to see milestones, because we're talking about taxpayer dollars, that there needs to be a list of benchmarks put in place for the release of those dollars, that all along the way that we're seeing those benchmarks met, and that it translates into additional private investment to make sure that that's where we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. Without all of the details and plans, because I think it's still a conversation at this point. There's still a number of studies, Georgia Regents, they're still working on their master plan. So until they have clearly defined what their 10-year master plan looks like, I don't anticipate or see significant investments from an ARC perspective in terms of what that collaboration looks like.
I mean, that money is going to be, I guess, borrowed and available up front if the SPLOST passes. I mean, do you have any idea what it will be used for?
Well, in terms of the city borrowing those dollars,
It's going to,
what, I mean, give me a
that
specific
project is
question.
going to get, I can't remember how many millions it is, but that money will be available as soon as the SPLOST passes. The loan the city is taking out against the SPLOST. Do you know what those funds would go towards?
I don't know what those funds would go towards. And again, I have not seen a definitive plan from a Mills campus perspective. Again, what I know based on my conversations with the Board of Regents, the Chancellor, and then of course my conversations with Georgia Regents, their staff there, they are still in the development phase of their master plan. And so when we talk about the Mills campus, unless there's significant private investment to move this forward at this point, I don't see significant investments necessarily coming from the city beyond what's proposed with the SPLOST. But I am not confident that those dollars will be led immediately, at least in any of the conversations that I've had. So I don't want to speak out of turn that there's a proposed loan process where they're going to loan them that money up front, and then the city will be responsible for, through the tax collections process, pay that off.
You stated in a recent forum that the city didn't need a bully, and it needed a statesman, which was basically a dig at Alvin Mason. Could you elaborate a little bit on that comment?
Well, I think I was generally clear in that the city needs someone who can lead it. The city doesn't need a dictator. The city doesn't need a king. The city needs someone who can lead it by working in collaboration with 10 commissioners, working in collaboration with our school board, working in collaboration with our legislative delegation, so that the three-legged stool of government truly functions in this community like it never has before. Instead of operating in silos, that we bring all of those entities together to truly promote Augusta, to advance Augusta. And the comment that I made, that the city doesn't need a bully, it needs a statesman, was in direct correlation to how individuals operate currently as a commissioner. You can't take city employees and publicly humiliate them and embarrass them on the floor of the commission. You cannot do that. It is unprofessional. It is uncalled for. That is not diplomacy. That is not how we engage. When we have hired employees in this city, when we have other professionals, other colleagues, we don't call them out names. We don't call them out of turn. That is not how government is designed to work. That is not how diplomacy works. And it becomes extremely difficult to move beyond the place of division and divisiveness. It takes us beyond the place of being able to move beyond race in this community when we operate from that perspective. And without question, it is known that there are individuals who have operated that way. Given the opportunity to serve this community as the next mayor, I am not that person. I am not that bully. I am the leader. I am the statesman that our community is looking forward to. I am that individual that the people of this great city can trust and that they can be proud to call mayor of Augusta.
Along those lines of how employees are treated, what do you think about the way the Fred Russell firing situation was handled?
Again, that was a situation where it had been discussed for years. It had been talked about for years in terms of how we handled our employees. Instead of it being one of these gotcha moments, it could have been handled in a more professional manner. Without question, it could have and should have been handled in a more professional manner, of where all of the commissioners would have had opportunity. Clearly, it was on the minds of commissioners because not only did they have a majority to vote for the firing and dismissal of Fred Russell, but it was across racial lines. While all of that's true, it could have and should have been handled differently. It was another moment of gotcha and public embarrassment for our city, for our employees, and certainly as it relates to Fred Russell.
I think we have time for a couple more questions.
You pointed out earlier that there's this general shift of population through Columbia County, and the latest census estimates show that Richmond County is actually decreasing. So I was wondering, that whole trend is threatening our title as the second largest city. Being a legislator in Atlanta, has there been any, does that matter? And how can we grow Augusta Richmond County into not only a working city, but a strong residential city?
So the way that we do that, so it is a conversation that many people have had. Make no mistake about it, as the next mayor of Augusta, I'm not interested in being the second anything. I want Augusta to be the premier city in which to live, to work, to raise a family, and to play. You don't win titles being second. Augusta, we're uniquely situated, 2 hours from each of the beaches. We can get to almost any place. But Augusta has some inherent advantages. Augusta matters to the state of Georgia. Augusta truly is an economic engine in terms of how we grow the state of Georgia, how we grow not only this region. Augusta is important to that. And so Columbus will not surpass us. We're still in that second slot. But how do we do that? We do that by creating livable communities and neighborhoods in Augusta, Richmond County. That requires us having a strong infrastructure and public works process on the south side of town, where there's a tremendous amount of land. But we've got to create those types of communities that people will live in, where there's sidewalks, but where they've also got retail and commercial opportunities within a 10-minute walking radius that they could get to. That's allowing us to grow our tax base. That's what's going to bring people back into Augusta, Richmond County. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have to champion our public schools. I don't want folks to go to Columbia County under this notion that there are no good schools in Richmond County. We've got some tremendous success stories, and as the next mayor, I want to promote those things because that's what's going to bring people back into Augusta, allowing us to diversify and expand our tax base, our property tax base, and then through retail and commercial investments in the private sector, that's how we're going to do that to further grow this community and stop the decline that's happened over the last 10-year period of time, as opposed to us truly growing as a community, as a city. I look forward to that opportunity, and that's the strategic way that I believe will allow us to do that. The second part to that will also mean diversifying our existing industrial base. Over the last several years, we've had Procter & Gamble to downsize. We've had Olin to downsize and almost shutter their facility there. We have got to do more to expand our existing industry. Elanco, Eli Lilly's plant here, formerly the Monsanto plant that I was the lead project engineer, lead automation engineer, they're making a huge investment in this community to expand their facility right now. They're going to hire more people. They're going to bring people into this community. I don't want them living in Columbia County. I want them living in Augusta, Richmond County, because we've got good schools, we've got tremendous neighborhoods, we've got safe neighborhoods. That's how we're going to be able to grow and continue to advance Augusta, Richmond County as being the premier city in which to live, to work, and to raise a family.
So in refusing to be second best, is it even in your sight to challenge the ranks of, say, Atlanta?
No, I'm not interested in that. In fact, we can't be Atlanta. We can't be Savannah. We can't be Columbus, Muskogee. We can't be Athens, Clark County. We can't be Macon-Bibb County. But what we can be is the best Augusta that the world's seen. Augusta is the only place in the world where all eyes in the world are on it in the month of April. All eyes are on it. The Super Bowl, the NBA Finals, the Major League Baseball championships. They move from one place to the next. We've got to take advantage of and leverage our inherent advantages. There's no other city in the world that has all eyes on it beginning in the middle of March and going until the middle of April. It's a 30-day, almost an entire month period of time where all eyes in the world leading up to and ending at the Masters Golf Tournament. So as the next mayor, I want to leverage that opportunity and take us from everybody coming to Augusta in April to people beginning to come into this city, into this county, beginning in March, because we've got a broad culture, arts, and entertainment opportunity in the city for folks to come, to travel, to tour, to make investments. And then on the other side of the Masters Golf Tournament, it continues. We spend so much of our time with events in the fall, but why not leverage the opportunity when people are already here in this community, already here in this city, so that they're spending money, they're expanding our sales tax opportunities and collections. That's what I look forward to as being the next mayor of Augusta, that we don't wait until September to have the Western Festival, the Arts in the Hearts of Augusta, the Ironman. We wait and we package all of those things at the end of the year. But I'm looking for an opportunity to grow Augusta so that when we talk about the taste of Chicago, what about the taste of Augusta leading up to and taking us into the Masters, and then going beyond that where we've got culture, arts, and entertainment, maybe a film festival here in Augusta, Georgia. If we can create The Walking Dead in Sonora, Georgia, small town, small city, why then could we not do some of the same things by leveraging our resources through the Department of Economic Development, opportunities that we've had, that we've created. We've grown Georgia's movie industry to a $1.2 billion industry, 22,000 employees here in the state of Georgia, third only to New York and to Hollywood in terms of movie making. Why not Augusta? That's vision. That's what we look for. That's opportunity. And as we look for doing that from March until the end of April, we're bringing people into this community, into this city, that they're making investment, that they're spending money, that we're not waiting to package all of our great things that happen until the end of the year, and then people wait until April of next year to come to Augusta to get involved in what's going on. No, if given the opportunity to serve as our next mayor, I'm going to bring all of those things to the table. The stakeholders, the partners, cannot do it alone. But what I do know is I've got a broad vision for our city that will allow us to grow, that will allow us to protect our current investments, to protect our elderly citizens, and to provide for future generations of Augustans so that they will want to come back here, to work here, to live here, and to raise a family here, if given the opportunity to serve Augusta as its next mayor.